to us, we offer a passage from Numbers 13, which is a very familiar passage to most of us. We pray that perhaps God will help us to hear with new ears. Listen for God speaking to us. The Lord said to Moses, "Send some men to explore the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites. From each ancestral tribe, send one of its leaders." So at the Lord's command, Moses sent them out from the desert of Paran. All of them were leaders of the Israelites. When Moses sent them to explore Canaan, he said, "Go up through the Negev and on into the hill country. See what the land is like and whether the people who live there are strong or weak, few or many. What kind of land do they live in? Is it good or bad? What kind of towns do they live in? Are they unwalled or fortified? How's the soil? Is it fertile or poor? Are there trees in it or not? Do your best to bring back some of the fruit of the land." It was the season for the first ripe grapes. So they went up and explored the land from the desert of Zin as far as Rehob toward Lebo-Hamath. They went up through the Negev and came to Hebron, where Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai, the descendants of Anak, lived. See why no one else wanted to read this aloud. Hebron had been built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. When they reached the valley of Eshcol, they cut off a branch bearing a single cluster of grapes. 2 of them carried it on a pole between them, along with some pomegranates and figs. That place was called the Valley of Eshcol because of the cluster of grapes the Israelites cut off there. At the end of 40 days, they returned from exploring the land. They came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. There they reported to him and to the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account. "We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here's the fruit. But the people who live there are powerful. The cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in the Negev. The Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country. And the Canaanites live near the sea and along the Jordan." Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, "We should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it." But the men who had gone up with him said, "We can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are." Word of the Lord. Well, today is a time for us to also explore some strange new territory. And some of us are fearing giants in the land, and others perhaps seeing great opportunities. The Flexible Governance Task Force has done some preliminary exploration, and we want to present to you 2 of the models that we've discussed. We've been looking at these things for, as Camille said, a few months now. And so we offer them to you to look at and to discuss. The first we call presbyteries within presbytery boundaries. A presbytery would be created within the boundaries of the Presbytery of Greater Atlanta. We are just calling it there PGA 2 just for talking purposes. PGA 2 would be a commission of the Presbytery of Greater Atlanta. It would be granted the rights and privileges of the Presbytery. A congregation would join the Presbytery of Greater Atlanta 2 by session vote. Inaction or doing nothing about moving would mean that the congregation would remain within the Presbytery of Greater Atlanta. With its own, it would have its own, the PGA2 would have its own committee on ministry, its committee on preparation for ministry, examinations committee, and authority to ordain, and General Assembly commissioners set by percentages, and maybe something else in there as well, but these are the main things. The minutes of the Presbytery of Greater Atlanta 2 would then be reviewed annually by Presbytery of Greater Atlanta. Presbytery of Greater Atlanta and Presbytery of Greater Atlanta 2 could share staff and administration and share in mission. In all other respects, then they would be treated as two separate presbyteries. So that is the first model for you to think about. A second model we call covenant communities. They would be very similar to presbyteries within the presbytery, but much smaller covenant communities of maybe 6 to 24 congregations who must then have a mission statement consonant with Reformed theology. They would present that mission statement to the Presbytery of Greater Atlanta for its approval. Communities then covenant to pray with and for one another. They would have at least monthly gatherings of pastors for prayer, Bible study, theological discussion, and mutual resourcing for mission. They would have at least semi-annual gatherings of elders for prayer, training, and strategizing for mission. They would be granted rights and privileges of a presbytery. Each would have its own committee on ministry, its committee on preparation for ministry, examinations committee, and the right to ordain. Again, there might be something else given. It would continue, though, to vote in Presbytery of Greater Atlanta in the plenary, in the main gathering, only in those areas where commission authority has not been granted to do it on their own. So, these are two models. They may not be the only models. Perhaps you have something to offer here. But we have been working on this a while. We want you at this point to, if you're not already gathered into small groups, to do that. We would ask you then to identify one person in your group to be a reporter. You'll be given cards and pencils for responses. You're going to have about 25 minutes to discuss the following questions, and they are up here, just to go over them a second. What are the giants that we face in moving toward more flexible governance? What are the fruits that we may harvest, or the opportunities in this new land? What form of flexible government would you suggest that might help the Presbytery more effectively pursue its mission to equip, create, and catalyze congregations for their mission and ministry? Are there ideas that the task force has not considered?